hasn't been great for the GPP bros this year, but thankfully had a bunch of action on the Cardinals and Vikings game, and basically all the overs hit on PrizePicks, which was nice. We were just talking about it before we went live, that sometimes those lines are just extremely low. So if you find a game that you think has a chance for some fireworks and some scoring, a lot of times just correlating those PrizePicks together is a really nice strategy. So yeah, nice little 10x on PrizePicks. So can't complain on that. But yeah, there's a lot to get to, Jake. So I think we should hop right into it. Week 9, for I guess the last week that's not double digits, which seems crazy because it seems like a month in between talking to you because so much has happened. Yeah, it's a halfway point. And there's a lot of good stuff here. So let's jump in. I do think that at the quarterback position, we're probably just going to start with Josh Allen at 8,500 against the Jets, right? I know he's expensive, but man, it's nice to have him back. That's I'm all over it with you, but go ahead.
Yeah, this is the Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. You have permission. Cooper Kupp, you have permission. Get Josh Allen in there if you can. And I know some people might say, oh, the Jets defense is underrated. Jets defense is pretty good. Here's the interesting thing on top of it. We know the Jets get pressure. By the way, Allen has a 0.21 EPA for drop back when pressured, which doesn't sound like a lot because it's 0.21, but it's by far and away the largest. To give you reference, second place is Tua, which is nice for Tua. But again, Josh Allen 0.21. Tua is in second place at 0.02 EPA per drop back under pressure. The difference from him to Tua is the same from Tua to 8th place. That's all you need to know. So I'm not worried about the pressure. I'm not worried about Josh Allen under pressure. If you can find a way to get him in your lineup. You and I talked about it was either last week or the week before that this year has kind of turned into not just seasonal, but DFS too, where there's the argument to go pay for those top 3 or 4 quarterbacks every single week now.
It's the new tight end, Jake. You're paying all the way up or you're paying all the way down. It's literally the new tight end.
Yeah. So if you can get Josh Allen, I would do it. And I wouldn't be afraid of Sauce Gardner, except for maybe Gabe Davis. Like if I'm going to stack this, I didn't give him in the list. The Jets are very vulnerable to slot wide receivers. Well, because nobody really attacks Sauce Gardner. So if you're thinking about a slate here is maybe instead of going Gabe Davis and you can still get your savings as Allen Diggs, McKenzie might be the play instead of Allen Diggs and Davis and then be hamstring anyway.
Yeah, I like that. If you can't get up to him in DFS, I think the strongest line on PrizePicks right now for Josh Allen is the over on rushing yards. It's at 40.5, according to our friends over at Run the Sims. That's one of the highest favorites to cash of the entire week. So like that one quite a bit. If we're paying down at quarterback, Jake, Justin Fields, 5,300 in this game against Miami. I mean, we've seen some fireworks from this team, but Justin Fields, man, like I haven't been here in a while. So I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, so Justin Fields, we know on the rushing side of things, is always going to give us free kind of numbers to start with. But I was looking at Justin Fields and something I like to look at. People are talking about Trevor Lawrence recently about, it doesn't matter that they give Calvin Ridley for next year because he's going to throw him over his head because off-target percentage. Well, for Justin Fields, weeks 1 through 6, his off-target percentage, 21.7. Since then, 11.4. He's actually inside the top 10 for lowest off-target percentage. The dropbacks have gone up. And if you look at what he's done when pressured, also has gone up 11 for 17, 165 yards and a touchdown the last 2 weeks. Justin Fields is playing better ball. And I don't think that Claypool is going to come in this first game and like hammer things and like make it all glorious and, 250 yards and 3 touchdowns for Justin Fields. But all we need Fields to do in a great matchup is do what he's done the last 2 weeks, which is the 60, 70 rushing yards, the rushing touchdown, and then just give us about 200 passing yards and a passing touchdown. And no, it's not Josh Allen, but if you're paying down, as you said, if you're paying down for anybody in this range, Justin Fields is the one I'm going for because he's been playing better as a passer, and you're going to get that rushing upside.
Do you have any interest in paying $600 more for Aaron Rodgers in Detroit, like in the Dome? I think that's probably going to be the path down there that most people go to.
That's why I'm going further down. Okay. I don't like. I feel like there's this. Would it shock me? No, but like I did Pat Mayo's show earlier this week, and he's like, I feel like this is the Aaron Rodgers FU game. Like this
might be.
But here's the problem with Aaron Rodgers so far. Like, what have we seen from Aaron Rodgers, even in a matchup like that? What have we seen from Aaron Rodgers to be like, oh yeah, he's going to get right this week? Like at least Tom Brady, we sat there and said, well, he hasn't had a healthy Chris Godwin with Mike Evans all year long.
Right.
At least he's still getting garbage time. Watching Aaron Rodgers, I don't think there's any, despite the fact I'm about to bring up one of his receivers later. I say all that, and then I'm going to bring up one of his receivers.
Yeah, there's a couple guys. So I think here's the takeaway. There's a couple guys in that game that we're going to definitely be on. We're unsure if we're going to be on Rodgers on that one. So I guess to be determined on that. You'll have to stick around.
I'm ready
for the
to
rest of
watch
the video.
everybody else use Rodgers. I'll be on the sidelines not doing it.
Fair enough. I would imagine you are not going to be on the sidelines with Austin Eckler. He's very expensive,
No.
8,800 at the Atlanta Falcons. But just looking at the Sims here on FanDuel, Austin Eckler, second highest optimal rate player. On DraftKings, we have Austin Eckler as the second highest optimal rate player.
I'm just saying that's behind number 2 or behind number 1, which is my second running back I was going to bring up.
We'll get to ETN. Yeah, it's a very strong running back week. I'll say that. And I think you agree with me. But let's start with Eckler.
Yeah, with Eckler, we know what's going on with potentially no Keenan Allen. His injury got worse during the bye, which is really weird to see. And I know people are like, well, it's going to be Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter. So everybody's just going to focus on Austin Eckler. Here's the thing. 27.9% of Justin Herbert's passes have not gone past the line of scrimmage. It's the 5th highest in the NFL. Why? It's because he's throwing everything to Austin Eckler and the running backs. And here's the good news. They're facing the Falcons. Which why I say, like, even if the Falcons try to hone in on Eckler, they're 28th in success rate for those kind of passes. They're not stopping those kind of passes, is what I'm saying. So if Austin Eckler is going to get double-digit targets, which is very likely, which we've seen before, and you're going to get that kind of volume, Austin Eckler is going to put up potential receiving day like a Jacoby Myers, plus the additional rushing, even if his rushing is only 40 or 50 yards, if he happens to find his way into the end zone with those, and then you have the receiving on top of it, which probably includes a touchdown. I mean, we're looking at a potential slate winning type of play, even at this price. So if you are paying up, Austin Eckler is the one I'm going to.
Pass catching running backs against Atlanta. It's like, I think we've been talking about this for like 6 years now. So definitely in on
I know,
Austin
when is
Eckler.
that going to change?
Probably never, man. They clearly do not care whatsoever. Austin Eckler is extremely expensive in comparison to other running backs on this slate, and it is, like I said, a very strong running back slate. So yeah, we buried the lead a little bit with Travis Etienne. He's 6,300 against the Raiders, and then let's bring Aaron Jones into this as well. He's 7,400 in that game against Detroit with, just an absolutely jam-packed running back slate.
Yeah, and what I'm looking at here is Etienne is facing the Raiders. I was almost going to stop you right there, be like, that's
why I brought up both, because we don't need to spend much time on Etienne.
I mean, how much? Yeah. And he's getting bell cow work. That's their biggest thing here. You're getting bell cow. Like if you said Etienne is Eckler, well, Eckler facing the Raiders, done. There you go. That's all you need to know. Let's just put Etienne in that conversation. So let's talk about Aaron Jones. Talk about the fact he's facing the Detroit Lions, already the positive. But it's the usage for Aaron Jones. And I know you have those low games. There was just 2 weeks ago, he only had 8 carries, but he got, 9 receptions that game. The week before that was the real disappointing one. And for seasonal, I'm never the biggest Aaron Jones fan. And I'm saying that to say this is coming from somebody that doesn't really love Aaron Jones. Yep. But we know the weeks that he hits, the weeks that he makes things different is the weeks that he hits 25, 30, 35 fantasy points and ends up winning weeks for people. Mm-hmm. And the usage is not just that they had the down weeks, but even in those down weeks, they're just not turning to A.J. Dillon that much. A.J. Dillon's an afterthought. Everybody, including myself, thought this might like a 60-40. Dillon's going to steal goal line opportunities. That's completely gone out the window. Aaron Rodgers, as you brought up earlier, might be without Allen Lazard, but even if he does have Allen Lazard, it's Allen Lazard and Romeo Doubs and Aaron Jones. That's all you care about right now in this Packers offense, because that's where Rodgers is looking. It's only those 3 options, and if Lazard's out, I mean, it's going to be a heyday for Aaron Jones and Doubs against this defense, which is why. Did I just give you the segue? We can just go straight to Doubs at wide receiver.
We can in a second, but we have to stop here for 2 seconds. When I was just talking about finding a game that you really like that could have some points, this is the PrizePicks one that really stands out to me. There are multiple players on the Green Bay side that are far, far too low. Aaron Jones, looking at these ones for Aaron Jones,
93.5 combined on PrizePicks. Yes,
crazy, man. So literally, we talked about it with Reeves even before that, but man, you run, you do not walk. If those lines are anywhere near what they are right now, as of the time of this recording, 93.5, and then even rushing yards 65.5. Both of those are way too low. Romeo Doubs is up there as one of the better prize pick values on the entire slate as well. The overs there, the Robert Tonyan overs, there's a ton of stuff to like here. So if you like this game, I would say, and if you haven't tried out prize picks yet, this is one of these ones where you can build a 4-5 person parlay here, and it makes a lot of sense if these end up going over. So check out the link in the description, get your free $100 bet. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you do that. Code Holka. This is a good one to do that. Very rarely do we get games where on my spreadsheet, it's almost all the top values of the week on prize picks. There's 6 of them in this game, and it's 3 to 4 players. So,
and the thing is why in this game to jump in real quick is it's because Jared Goff at home And it's, so we know Jared Goff's better indoors, but he's even better at home. And then it's a defense that we're not too worried about. Jared Alexander might be an issue, so I think that if I'm looking for the over in the receiving game, I might steer away from Amon-Ra St. Brown because what is it? Yeah. I think it's 71.5. That one
I don't really
brings
like
me a little
many
bit pause.
of the stuff on the Detroit side, really. I think if you want to get really weird, you just grab like a Jared Goff over rushing yards. I think it's like 1.5, but it's a division game. Like he might scramble for 4 yards and then you're there. Like those ones are fun to sweat.
I like some of the Jamal Williams because DeAndre Swift does not look good.
But I think that's one of the things we talked about in DFS, right? Like get one thing right with your stack or get a game right. We talked about it a few weeks ago, like getting this Miami stack right, and it ended up really paying off for us. So the same thing on PrizePicks. If we really like this game and it's way too low for the game environment in Detroit, like it's one of those situations where you just should be taking advantage of it. So we don't need to go too much deeper into that. Wide receiver, let's talk about Dobbs, 5,300 at Detroit. I guess we basically talked about it, but too cheap. If we don't get Lazard, there's a lot to like here.
There is too, and I think I don't know. You already talked with Reeves. I don't know if did he bring up the man coverage with Lazard, and that's the big thing. So there you go. Lazard with that, and then if it's not Lazard, Dobbs can still do it. It's not as great as Lazard, but it's still if he steps into that situation, you get that man coverage opportunity for them both to exploit this matchup. And the biggest thing about Dobbs is if Lazard's are like not out there, it's an easy hit. But even if Lazard is out there and seasonal, I was kind of off Dobbs a few weeks ago. People know this, and I'm referencing again that to come from somebody that was like tired of Dobbs seeing 7 targets and catching 1 pass. But the volume is there, and the volume's there even if Lazard is out there. And it is, as you mentioned, the biggest thing is it's not just the volume, it's the target share of the team volume that if we expect this game to be what it is, if everybody's saying Aaron Rodgers is whatever it might be, and this game should be in the 30s for both teams, how does Dobbs not get close to double-digit targets, if not exceed it, even if Lazard's on the field? So that's why I love Dobbs, because I'm looking, when I was looking for wide receiver locks of the week, I was trying to find ones because we had a heavy quarterback and running back already. So I'm trying to find some more tiers. Although I do like somebody who's a little bit more expensive. But do you want to go to the expensive one or the also discounted one?
Yeah, well, Romeo Dobbs 49.5 on PrizePicks. That's too low. Let's talk about Joshua Palmer, because if you can't pay up for Eckler, like another guy in this game that makes a ton of sense is definitely Palmer. He's only 5,100 at Atlanta.
Yeah, I don't mind Palmer, and I don't mind DeAndre Carter, too. One of them might hit, one of them might go belly up, but at this price, they're both in play. The reason I like Palmer is the one I wanted to focus on him real quick is because I like him no matter what, even if Keenan Allen's surprise active, and that's why I wanted to talk about this, is because people were kind of off of Josh Palmer because everybody's like, hey, he should step up and be the number 2. This is all the opportunity in the world while Keenan Allen's sidelined. Austin Eckler brought up Josh Palmer on Yahoo with Matt Harmon last week. And the reason he's talking about him, and I talked about this on my podcast, and I said this is because Josh Palmer is an outside wide receiver. When Keenan Allen was out, he's the number 2 on the team. So they used him in this mismatch position where like they asked him to play a little bit slot. They moved him around a little bit. It wasn't his true role. His true role is replacing Mike Williams, as we saw last year. This is the excitement people had for Josh Palmer, and you should have renewed excitement for Josh Palmer, whether or not Keenan Allen plays and whether or not DeAndre Carter does something. The good thing here is that if you want to go for maybe a pivot stack here, I'm not saying to go all 4, but maybe in a tournament, Herbert, Eckler, and then the Palmer, Carter get you a cheap way to get through that entire team and then still get some of the other options we're talking about.
I like it. Pivoting over to the Sims here quickly, Jake. A couple weeks ago, we saw a bunch of these Bengals at the top, and we didn't completely avoid it, but we also, or at least I didn't completely end up on.
We were on it. We just didn't include Tyler Boyd.
Correct. But we still have T. Higgins and Joe Mixon in the top 4 of the Sims here. Obviously, no Jamar Chase on FanDuel. Both these guys are still top 5, even though they're very expensive. So this takes into consideration the price. And T. Higgins, 7,300 on DraftKings against Carolina, is your last wide receiver lock of the week.
Yeah, they do give up some big plays to number 1s. The biggest thing that you look at with Carolina is they don't give up a ton of touchdowns so far to wide receivers, at least this year. But you look at some of their opponents, too. They had that mess of the Saints, Atlanta last week, although they gave up the big play to Amir Byrd because that's what they do. Like, they just give up some big plays. Mike Evans had a solid game, didn't find the end zone. But if you're looking for T. Higgins here, the other thing I like about Higgins is that we already knew he has the number 1 upside. We saw him outscore and outperform Jamar Chase a couple games down the stretch last year in 2001. But people are kind of off of him last week because they're like, oh, it took garbage time for him to hit. And like, yeah, nothing was going right until late in the fourth quarter. And that's when Higgins and Boyd got it. And well, what if he's getting the number one? Higgins is still that good. And I feel like to get Higgins, it's not at a prohibitive price, but in a matchup that some people might be overlooking for one. And then two is the fact that the Carolina Panthers offense is starting to play up with PJ Walker. It's starting to not be it's just going to drag out the game and it's going to be done by 3:30. This is one that we could see them get into the 20-plus range, especially if the Bengals is going to play the defense like they did against the Browns. And then you're looking at if Joe Burrow throws 300 yards, there's one more person out of the equation. It's only Higgins and Boyd. So I love some Higgins this week.
Yeah, here's the thing. I confirmed on the back end, over 60% of you guys watching this specific video every single week are not subscribed. So I'm going to up my game a little bit here for you guys. If you tap the subscribe button right now, I will reward you with a picture of a puppy. My puppy, maybe Jake's puppy. Okay, thank you. Apparently that's all it takes because we just got about 50 more subscribers. I guarantee it. I'm going to check it. I guarantee it. All you got to do is show a picture of a puppy.
I was going to ask Barkley to come over, but she's legitimately laying on the couch, belly up, with her head hanging off the side.
Well, I'm going to need you to send me a picture of Barkley after this. We'll make sure it gets on screen for the people that just hit the subscribe
While
button.
we're talking, I'm going to see if I can potentially get it here. This is what I'm trying to take a picture of her over here.
We can only give it to the people that hit the subscribe button, though. Let's talk about tight end.
I
Gerald
got it.
Everett.
That's the only way they get the picture. I got it.
Gerald Everett is, I guess, probably in this game, if you don't want to, I guess, decide between Palmer and Carter, maybe Gerald Everett at 4,800 against Atlanta is the piece that you need. And if you're stacking it up, taking care of that tight end position is kind of nice as well.
It is. And I have been one that hasn't loved Gerald Everett, mostly because I keep expecting Keenan Allen and or Donald Parham to come back. But if Keenan Allen's out, even if Parham's back, you might see some more 12 from this team, which Everett in this position, look, if you were talking about Josh Palmer and DeAndre Carter as your 1 and 2, whether or not Keenan Allen's back, like he needs somebody, Justin Herbert needs somebody in the red zone, needs somebody in the end zone. And that's the one thing. He's trusted Everett so far this year. Parham worried me for snap counts. Not that he wouldn't still turn to Everett. It's just the snap count option would just drop. But they're so thin on options right now that I'm not as worried as I was before with Everett. And now I was out on him this week until I heard the Keenan Allen news.
I don't think there's anything else on Everett. He's a great play in that mid-range that we don't typically go towards unless we really like the player. Evan Ingram, 3,300. If you don't have the salary to get to Everett, is also definitely on the radar this week. Tell us why you like him.
Because he shouldn't be 3,300. That's the biggest thing. Like, look at the last 4 games: 6 for 69, 5 for 40, 4 for 67, 4 for 55. He finally scored. He finally got in the end zone last week. Actually, that's not the first time he got in the end zone. He just dropped a touchdown earlier this year, which would have made the day. That was the game where he went 1 for 9. But it's the volume. As teams are starting to pay a little bit more attention to Kirk and Zay Jones's hit and miss, Trevor Lawrence is just relied on Evan Ingram. And yes, that's more of a floor than a ceiling play. But last week, the 55 and a touchdown for 3,300. If you told me right now, Joe, you get 55 yards and a touchdown for your tight end that's 3,300, I'd lock him in everywhere because that's almost 5 times value right there.
Yep.
And the biggest thing here is a lot of people are going to look at Trevor Lawrence last week. And I tweeted it out after that game on Sunday morning because Trevor Lawrence was hovering in around 11 yards per completion and about 7, almost 8 yards in attempts, air yards, before that game. The Denver Broncos are 1 and 2 in those 2 categories at lowest allowed in the 5 and 7 range into those 2 numbers. So he's away from the Broncos. It's a much better matchup. It's not the greatest matchup in the world, but it's much better. I think Evan Ingram is going to put up probably a similar game to last week.
There's one more PrizePicks play that I'm absolutely obsessed with right now, and it is in the game that we were just talking about, but I'm actually going to hold that one back. So you're going to have to subscribe to the premium DFS and betting Playbook. It's a free newsletter for 7 days. You can try it out. There's literally no downside. Link in the description. So yeah, I would do that this week if you haven't tried it out yet. DraftKings, lineup. Jake, what are we doing here? Are we jamming in these running backs?
I was going to start with Evan Ingram because I don't want to pay up at tight end. I was just going to put Evan Ingram in, and then because that 3,300 is just too glorious.
Mm-hmm. It's nice. Is there a cheap defense that you like? Because I think there's actually a few down there that are interesting this week. Normally we have like that one placeholder, but this week there's a couple.
I think there is. The interesting one to me is the looking at the Buccaneers against the Rams, because that offensive line is still terrible. The Matthew Stafford still looks broken. Yeah, he's looked better with Allen Robinson of late, but the Buccaneers defense, if you look at their game log, by the way, only 2 players have even topped 73 yards against them, and nobody's gone for 100 yards receivers wise. I know a lot of people are talking about Cooper Kupp, and if Cooper Kupp's out, what about Allen Robinson? Look at the game log. Yes, they give up little bits here and there, but they're very stingy in the pass defense range. So I like the Buccaneers defense. Let's just plug in Ingram and the Bucks.
Yeah, and what's nice about that too, it's one of 2 games in the afternoon. Obviously, a much smaller slate with all the buys going on, but we love having a 4 p.m. defense in there. So totally cool with the Bucks.
Throw in
3K.
Palmer and Dobbs.
Okay.
Let's see, and then see if we can. What's that give us?
Because we had all the salary saving right now.
I know, that's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm seeing what we can do here. So let's. I want to see. Let's save the Josh Allen thing.
I was just gonna say, are you trying to fit in your boy?
I'm going to. So let's go with the 2 lower running backs. Let's do ETN and Aaron Jones, who's not that much cheaper, but I'm just seeing where like this is. Let's just do it. Let's do it. Let's see if we can get those.
So if you did get to Josh Allen, you still have 5,500 per player, wide receiver, and a flex.
Yeah, I was just looking what if Allen and Diggs, what that leaves us 2,700. So that doesn't work.
It's really tough to get both those guys in and play Aaron Jones.
Really is. Well, you know what? Actually, if we pull out Aaron Jones, put in Jamal Williams.
Okay.
Does this get us to McKenzie? Oh, McKenzie's is 4,900. Ooh, that's I'm surprised he's up there a little bit.
I don't think you have to double him though.
No, Allen and let's see what do we have at 4,900 if we put Allen and Diggs.
Oh, we gotta put Diggs in here. 4,200 in 4,200. Flex. Yep.
So that leaves us with
that range is like if you did want to go with like the Khalif Raymond or something like that. Like it's like it gets kind of gross, but like trying to back into a mini stack, that could be one. Zay Jones,
super disgusting, gross. Zay Jones,
it's a tough range.
Bring back.
It's a tough range.
No, I don't have the Jets. What do we have here? What do the Jets have at wide receiver in this game for their prices? I was just completely off of that.
Oh man, like the Jets stuff is
Braxton Berrios. You still have money left on the counter. I don't like this lineup.
Yeah, I think so. I think that what I would probably do here is see what happens if we at least move down at defense. Because if we like pieces of this, like even if we just like put in Seattle, another defense that's later on in the slate, that gets us to 4,700. Is there anything we like more at 4,700 at flex? Because that gets us to like a Josh Reynolds. That gets us to.
I'm worried about Josh Reynolds. Mooney against Miami. If you're going to play that Miami game, I can see that. I think some people might be off Mooney for the fact they just throw Mooney for now.